How are you, Miss Kay?
I'm great, Manny. Thank you. How are you?
I am wonderfully blessed as always. Thank you so much. And a big congrats on finding courage. It's an eye-opening and totally absorbing look at the cost of freedom.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. So first things first, describe finding courage to our, in your own words to our viewers.
It's a story about a family. That's really what it comes down to. It's about a woman who is living in exile, basically in San Francisco, and she can't go back to her homeland in China. So her family is torn between America and China, and she's really got she's got some big things going on in China with her brother being wrongfully imprisoned and her trying to get the remains of her sister out of China. So she's under a lot of pressure, and she's also struggling to adjust to living in a completely different environment. So what we do is we followed her over a number of years, and this is a family story, and it's her story and how she comes to find her courage.
So by meeting Yifei Wang is who you're talking about, right? So by meeting her, was that the trajectory of how this documentary was created?
It was. I was introduced to her from our last movie that we did that was called Hard to Believe, and we thought her story was interesting, and we thought we could make a short 10-minute film about this. But then her brother escaped from prison. Well, he was released from prison in China and then escaped to America. And he was there for almost 13 years. So we started following him and his healing process, which was really quite miraculous. And then her husband, so that was the point where we thought, maybe this will be a longer movie. And then her husband started to get undercover footage, secretly shot inside labor camp in China. And that's when we realized this is not a short movie. We have to turn this into a longer feature.
Wow. Now take us through the pre-production process. I mean, it's intelligently researched. And how did you do that? And how did you find your, I guess, how did you find the heart of the film?
That was probably the hardest thing because all of the characters were so interesting. The sister, the brother, and then the other sister, her life was so interesting before she passed away. And then we found these former Chinese Communist Party officials, and their stories were fascinating. So that was really challenging. So I tended to cast a wide net to see what's the whole story here. How far can I go with my research to make sure that I include as many aspects as possible and have a wide net of information, then had to color it back and back and back until it was into 80 minutes. And that's when we ended up with Yifei, who's just a beautiful character that despite all the tragedy and horrific things that she's been through and her family, she still has a smile on her face every day. And it was so inspiring. And so I'm really glad that she became the main character of this film, because I think not everyone would handle it the same way as her, but I think she's a real inspiration.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And at the heart of finding courage is Falun Gong. I mean, after seeing the documentary, I researched, I mean, I've heard about it, but I'm actually intrigued. I mean, tell us more about what you know about Falun Gong or Falun Dafa. And are you a practitioner at all?
Well, I actually did started practicing before the persecution started. So I was already in production in Australia. And I was doing meditation and then I started Falun Dafa and I thought, this is great. Then a year or two later, this persecution began in China and I couldn't believe it, because I'm thinking, I go to a park, I do 5 exercises and I read a book which talks about these principles of truth, compassion, and tolerance and how to put that into your life. And it's, you know, it's a way of life. And you see people doing yoga in the park, running. It's, you know, different forms of looking after your health and your body and your mind. And I really liked this one. And then this persecution started. And for me, it was just unbelievable. Why would people, just because, you know, for me, I'm not Asian. So I'm thinking, just because the color of their skin is different to mine, why are they being persecuted? And so I really needed to see it for myself. And I actually went to China. Wow. And I held a banner on Tiananmen Square that had those 3 words, truth, compassion, and tolerance. And I was arrested and thrown into jail. and
Wow.
a basement prison cell in Beijing, in Tiananmen Square. And I found out later when I was interviewing Yifei from the movie, she was held in the same basement prison cell as I was. And that was quite phenomenal, that we both had somewhat similar experience, but because I'm not Asian, I'm not Chinese, I was treated very differently.
Wow.
So it was just very eye-opening. And I think, I mean, that was 20 years ago. But I saw what the practice of Falun Gong was like before the persecution, and it's still the same after the persecution, except that people are saying, please don't kill us for meditating. And that's what Yifei Wang did in China, and what she suffered was far worse than what I suffered. I was only in detention for 23 hours, and then they deported me. So a few bruises and I'm fine. But you see the different spectrum there. Because she's Chinese, the way she's treated is just so brutally. And I'm very fortunate that I didn't suffer that, but it made me feel that I should help to tell this story.
Right. And I mean, you walk the walk and talk the talk, in other words, you know. You know what though? In the documentary, it was mentioned that Falun Gong is too spiritual and had become too popular. I mean, do you think that was the reason it was banned in China?
Absolutely, because the government estimated themselves that 100 million people were practicing Falun Gong this was, I think, 1998. And so, you know, essentially the communist government it tried to stamp out, well, it stamped out all spiritual practices, very traditional of Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and the Cultural Revolution. And Falun Gong comes from that tradition. It's actually from the Buddha school. And so those principles of compassion are known from the Buddha school, tolerance and patience, honesty. Those things are very entrenched in traditional Chinese culture. But those things were essentially wiped out by the regime in the Cultural Revolution. So then when Falun Gong started to bring this back, you know, on a small scale, it probably wasn't a problem. But when they started to realize, the regime started to see there's a lot of people doing this, and not just regular citizens, but the officials. A lot of Chinese Communist Party officials were doing it, because it shouldn't be a conflict. If you're whatever work you do, you're just a good worker. If you're part of the party, you're a good party member. There's no conflict, because Falun Gong doesn't require any political affiliation. So that's, yeah, I really do believe that. And when that line came in the movie, I felt, yeah, I can stand behind that, because after all the research that I did, and I went through so many piles of speeches and documents from the Chinese Communist Party and the officialdom, I really believe that it is because the Communist Party is strictly atheist, that the spirituality and the traditionalness of the practice being from the Buddha school is the biggest issue, and the popularity. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, and we talked about the footage that you shot. How were you able to get interviews from former Chinese communist leaders and judges?
Yeah, that was challenging, but a lot of them actually didn't want to go on camera, because what shocked me the most is they said they didn't feel their stories were of value or would be of any use. And I found their stories so fascinating, but they didn't see a lot of, they didn't have a lot of hope. They didn't have a lot of value in themselves, in what they could say. These guys, they don't go on camera. They don't write memoirs. You don't see memoirs from former officials from China. So to track them down was one thing, but then getting them to agree to go on camera was another thing. And then getting them to try and open up and understand that I'm trying to ask them to speak in a way that English speakers would understand was very, very challenging. There's a lot of challenges on all fronts, but we managed to do it.
Oh, and we talked about the inside, those inside of the camp, the prison. I mean, lots of shocking images there, and it's the brother who shot it, right? You said
not the brother, that was the husband.
the husband.
And there's so many characters in this family, and they're such a tight-knit family. I just love them. I think they're amazing. Yeah. But yeah, it was the husband, and because he was quite a high-ranking journalist in China. And if you're a journalist in China, you have a pass. If you get pulled over by the police for speeding, you show your pass, you're never going to get a ticket.
Yeah.
So this is part of the officialdom. So he took a lot of risk he was putting himself in extreme danger, and the whole family. But he knew that he had a chance because of his rank as a journalist. So he took a big risk.
Wow. And also, how long did it take you to how long did it take you to finish it, Finding Courage, from the production process all the way to editing?
It took 5 years. Yeah, we filmed the family over a period of 4 years, not full time, but weeks at a time. And the editing took 2.5 years. That was a challenge because we just had so much footage, so much archival, and how to weave all the characters together. And like I said, it grew from a very small film into a rather big film. So it was a struggle to put it together. But yeah, 5 years. Yeah.
5 years. Wow. Let's talk about the Chinese culture. You said you went there. What did you learn about their culture, and how does that culture play into the story of Finding Courage?
Well, it's fascinating because I didn't realize the distinction between the Chinese culture and the communist culture that's come into play in the last 70 years. So watching these characters and seeing how they come across on the camera, they're very traditional in how they respect the family and how they respect each other and interact with each other, and how they really try to follow these principles: truth, compassion, tolerance. So these things, I think, seem to be very traditionally Chinese. And then you start to see the other aspects from interviewing these former Chinese officials. Their approach to things is very different because they're coming at it from working within the regime, and they're telling me that they must lie. If you don't lie, you get nowhere and you will be pushed down and crushed. And this is from not just one, it was across the board, and we interviewed a lot from all different departments. So I just started to see that the culture is actually quite different. It's quite confusing, very confusing to see what is Chinese culture and the difference between Chinese culture and this communist culture hybrid thing. So I'm still looking into that. It's fascinating, but it's very confusing.
Yeah. You know what? I caught some stuff. I mean, I'm Filipino, and we have some Chinese influences throughout hundreds and hundreds of years. One of the things that I like is that when they talk to their older brother, older sister, they have a different term for them.
Yes.
Like a form of respect. Same thing with the Philippines. We call our older brother kuya, our older sister ate. I mean, it's just just ingrained in us, and I just thought it's fascinating. But a big congrats again, because you shaped this domestic drama into a fiery rebuke of the Chinese communist regime, pretty much. But are you afraid at all that you created this documentary?
People ask me that, but when I see the risks that this family have been through, I've had some, it was kind of difficult to finish the movie, and sometimes I would think about Leo, the brother in the movie, what he went through in prison, just on that very first night, what he went through, and then over the next 12.5 years. And I'm thinking, what am I complaining about?
Yeah.
Really? And what are the risks involved? They've already faced them all, and they're still smiling. So I think the conclusions I came to is the louder you are, the less pushback you get from the regime. Because they actually they prey on fear. So if you're afraid, they will use that to manipulate you. But if you can look at things rationally, have the facts, and then present it, I think we went to a lot of effort to do that and make sure that the content in the movies is pretty much bulletproof.
Yeah.
And then at least I can stand behind that and say, we did the best job we could, and what we're presenting is fully backed up. And so in that case, I think it's a lot harder for the regime to target me or our team directly, but they might try and target others who feel fearful and say, well, they try and do that. They look for fear. So I'm trying to learn from this family, Yifei Wang and her family. They've overcome so much fear. And through that process, I think it's helped us overcome some of that too, and just feel like It's okay. We need to stand by the truth. It's worth standing up for your values. And if it's a good story, tell the story. It's all about the story. And that's what it comes down to. And I think this is a great story, but it's an important story, and it's a totally relevant story to us now. We can really learn a lot from it. So I think that comes first, and anything else afterwards, well, we just see.
That's right. And I just want to say to the viewers, it's not all doom and gloom in Finding Courage. It actually ends on a super high note, right?
Yes, yes, there is so much hope in this movie, and there is tragedy in this story, absolutely, but there is hope, and that's yeah. That's why I'm so glad that we had Yifei Wang as our main character. She's a very hopeful person, always smiling like you, Manny. I think it gives people hope. You know, it makes you feel good, and it just is that reminder that no matter how bad things get, that it could always be worse. So it's really just value what you've got.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Yifei Wang and her brother do. And I hope that people get that from this movie.
We had found the Fallon wheel.
You bet.
Now, one quick thing though. So Finding Courage had gone through the festival rounds, am I right? And then now it's available on VOD, on demand. Can you tell our viewers how they can see Finding Courage?
Yes, so it's currently with a premium VOD bundle. So you get the movie, you get the soundtrack. We have an amazing soundtrack, all original score, and we have a theme song sung by, oh, you love the singer Mika Hale. She has this amazing voice. The song is Courage is Found. And so you're getting it before it's out on iTunes. And then also behind the scenes footage, interview with me, and some special footage there. So that bundle you can see from findingcouragemovie.com. You can go and buy it there, stream it there, share it with your friends. And that's the way to see the movie. We still have some festivals screenings going on, but with the crazy year in entertainment this year, the festivals are really open and saying yes, please get this film out, because they're really supporting it.
Right, all the festivals now are all virtual, so that's great. I mean, because you have a much more global audience now, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, anything to add? Are you working on a new documentary, or are you researching something right now?
Well, after doing this documentary, I had so many people ask me about the former Chinese officials that we interviewed, and so I started to put their stories together. And so this is in the bundle. I'm sorry, Manny, I missed this point. One of the bonuses in the bundle, the movie bundle, is you get a book, ebook, which is 330 pages, and it's called Who Are China's Walking Dead? And that's all the amazing stories that didn't make it into the movie with these former Chinese regime officials who we never hear from. And so we only got a few minutes of them in the movie, but so many people were fascinated by their stories. And when they asked me, I wanted to put it into a documentary, but the way they come across on camera was really hard to it wasn't working. Yeah. So then I said, this just needs to be written down. So this story's there, and it's also got my journey of how I came to understand it. So it's not like an academic, it's really a story about how to cross-cultural boundaries. I think that's what we're really looking at, is how to understand what's going on in China from our perspective. So that's part of the movie bundle, and I've just finished that. So that's pretty exciting that we've got all those things together, and that's pretty much what I've been working on.
Once again, it's findingcouragemovie.com, right?
That's right.
A big congrats again, Miss Kay. Thank you so much again, and I'll continue to meditate and find my inner Fallon.
You've already got so much courage, Manny. Keep going. It's fantastic.
Oh, good luck on everything, okay? And I'll talk to you soon, okay?